All right, all right, all right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rose Garden. My name is Kenny Thacker, and I'm the founder, chief creative officer of 100 Roses from Concrete. And we are so very excited to have this panel this evening as we have our second Arab American Heritage Month panel. We had our first last year, and we thank the team that put it on last year, but we have to thank the team that put it on this year as well. So on that note, I'm actually going to stop talking immediately because there's so much good information to get out of tonight's conversation. So I'm going to pass it on to the host with the most. Angelo, take it away.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you so much for offering us this space, and welcome everybody to our second Arab American Heritage Month panel. Last year, we've had the pleasure of doing our first ever panel where we discussed so many topics, mostly surrounded around the inclusion of Arab professionals in the US workforce. And this year, we've decided to go a little bit deeper and bring a very new topic that is not so often talked about or can be a little bit fresh for a lot of y'all. And I have the pleasure of having two wonderful ladies who are groundbreaking change makers in the industry. And we're doing things a little bit differently this year. So I'm actually going to share my screen because I have a deck that I want to present to y'all. Kenny, I think I need screen share options. There we go. Perfect. Awesome. So before we do the official intros, I actually want to start a few educational points and some interesting facts about Arabness in particular. So Arabness is a neo-term that defines Arab culture and diaspora as an empowering quality movement and narrative that progresses cultural equity around the world. It is a global movement of diaspora. It is a quality. It is a phenomenon that generates from Arab people, given history and marginalization, to improve equity around the world. One thing that a lot of people don't know about Arabs in general, because, you know, America tends to see Arabs as a microscopic view in a particular look or attitude or behavior or something, but Arabness is actually very multifaceted. It's multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial, and multi-layered. It is a race. Arab is considered a race in modern day definitions, but not based on skin color, purely based on language, culture, and historical marginalization. There are Arabs who identify as Black. There are Arabs who are white, light skin, olive skin, brown skin, however they want to identify. There are Arabs who are Muslim, Arabs who are Christian, Arabs who are Jewish. You know, there are Arabs who are mixed with other ethnicities and other races around the world. This is a beautiful campaign done in Dubai, actually, showing the basketball community of Arabs in Dubai, done by a media company called Dukan. So I just always want to share this photo, just sort of the versatility of Arabness. And these wonderful people are influential
that we what?
Activists.
Oh.
Okay. We ask for you, please, to mute yourselves while we're presenting. Thank you. These wonderful individuals are famous public figures, actors, activists, entrepreneurs. And one thing they all share in common is that they are all Arab, believe it or not. So I bet some of you didn't know that Salma Hayek is actually Lebanese and Mexican. Over here, we have in the first picture here, Rashida Tlaib, who is Palestinian US Congresswoman. Layla F. Saad, who is Emirati, Qatari, Eritrean, and British, is a famous author who talks about white supremacy in one of her books, which I happened to read and was very successful. Zoe Saldana is Lebanese, Haitian, Dominican. Shakira, Lebanese, Colombian. Dalal Chalo, who was in The Witcher Netflix series, is Kuwaiti and Cameroonian. DJ Khaled, some of you may have not known that he's actually Palestinian. Ilham Omar, a US Congresswoman, Somalian. Gigi Hadid is Palestinian and talks a lot about Palestine in her field. And then French Montana, a lot of you may assume he's just Black, but actually he is Moroccan Black. And all of these wonderful people Some of them do amplify their Arabness and some of them talk about it a little bit, but this just shows you that Arabness is global and is successful around many, many areas of industries. Some of the facts we also like to talk about is that there's 22 Arab countries, according to the Arab League, including countries that you may not know about, such as Djibouti, for example, Sudan, Yemen, Libya, are Arab countries. We're spread out over the continents of Asia and Africa, and we identify with these continents depending on each country. For example, Lebanon, where I was born, literally is on the intersection of West Asia and North Africa, but we don't identify as North African or West Asian. It was never part of our narrative, but we do intersect at proximity to those continents. The regions that exist are the Middle East, the Gulf, the Levant, North Africa, the Mediterranean Sea. The main language is Arabic that brings us all together in addition to culture, but there's sub-languages, colonized languages of colonization, such as French and English, Sub-Saharan native languages, South Sudanese Arabic, Somalian, even Kurdish are languages part of the Arab world. There's many dialects. So think of Latin America, for example. You have Colombia, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Cuba. They all speak Spanish, but they all have different dialects. And these different dialects are very distinct. The same thing in the Arab world. You have the Khaliji dialect in Saudi Arabia. You have Peninsular dialect, Egyptian dialect, Levantine dialect, and many more. In terms of religions, even though Islam is a dominant religion in the Arab world, but Christianity, Druidism, even Judaism are dominant religions, as well as Samaritanism and 20 plus religions across the Arab world. In terms of migration, 4 million Arabs in the US, and those exclude, Arabs who have ticked the box of white, for example, due to proximity. Those exclude those who are not citizens, who are also Arab. There's over 500,000 Arabs in the Caribbean islands, in West Africa. I don't know exactly those numbers, but you can Google search them. In Latin America and Brazil in particular, in Europe and Canada. Now that we've given some good facts, good educational facts, I want to introduce you to our wonderful panels that I've had the greatest pleasure to get to know on a personal level before we started this panel. And I really, really am so inspired by their stories and their value that they bring. First of all, we have a wonderful entrepreneur who identifies as Black American Palestinian Arab, who has created a boutique for client operations infrastructure, comms planning, branding, and she helps businesses scale financial success. Heather Qader is a graduate of Penn State and Fox School of Business, Temple University. She was the leader of the Graduate Student Association at the school. She's part of the Leadership Philadelphia and the Walnut Club. Heather has appeared on Business Because and many other entrepreneurial publications. She has worked with the NAACP, La Colombe, the City of Philadelphia, Comcast. And aside from that, Heather has traveled the world to Chile, Colombia, Jamaica, Holland, Indonesia, and Morocco, to name a few. And she has immersed herself with the culture, the infrastructure, the ecosystem, and the design of each and every single country and their communities, and brings that back into her team that is actually multicultural and brings a cross-cultural perspective into her field. Heather, I would like to hear from you. How do you feel, and what do you hope to bring to this panel today?
I would love to bring perspective. I've never talked about my Arabness before. That's odd because I've been Arab for 33 years and counting. So I'm just really happy to be given a platform to discuss, how I believe that it's helped me in business. So thank you, Jad.
No, thank you so much. Next up, my other sister, Dena, founder of Mekawi Impact, a social impact marketing brand, PR entertainment company centered around style, resilience, and pushing narratives forward in the social impact space and the global narratives. Dena was actually a representative of the UN for Global Comms for over 10 years. She also moderated the peace strategies for Day of Peace in 2016, along with famous public figures such as Leonardo DiCaprio, Stevie Wonder, and Ban Ki-moon. She also had an amazing mention during the UN by Michael Douglas, and she has had the pleasure to work with Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys after their visit to the Nile in Egypt and reconnecting with their roots. She landed them a front page on cover of a magazine. And Dena has appeared on 40 Under 40 by Arab America, which is #1 Arab American organization in the US. She had features on Campaign US. And also, fun fact, Dena was a contestant in Miss Arab USA back in 2013. I know that we always joke about that, but Dena, tell me, how do you feel? And tell me, what do you hope to share? And what are your thoughts on, this panel?
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you for holding this space. And thank you everyone for listening and being here. I'm just really excited to just share my story. The moment I discovered my purpose, I really believe that storytelling not only can shape perspective, but when I didn't see authentic representation of our narratives 7-8 years back, when DE&I was diversity and inclusion wasn't a hot topic, I took it upon myself to really create that company. I rarely saw an Arab woman starting a PR company, marketing company, a consulting company. And I'm just really excited to, be able to share my story again and really connect with everybody. And I think that's the power of connectivity, being able to learn from one another. And I'm just excited to be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much and welcome. We love all of that. Last but not least, this is me, a little collage about myself. I won't say much, but I do want to say that I am a proud Lebanese, born in Lebanon. My father is of Palestinian background, and he has Haitian background from his grandfather's side that we discovered later on. And I purely amplify cross-cultural dynamics in my line of field right now as a DEI and multicultural strategist. I am in the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. I've been featured on Ad Age. I've done intercultural communication workshops with the American Marketing Association. I do publications with the diversity movement on multicultural marketing and understanding global diversity. I was featured on Fox News talking about media and elections, and I have an award-winning film on Amazon Prime Video called Once Upon a Color. And currently, I'm actually experimenting with digital art on amplifying our narratives, from a historical perspective. So just to give you a little gist, but enough about that, because we're here for y'all, for all of us, actually. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, giving you all this wonderful intro, and we're going to get straight to it. So the first thing I would like us to talk about is for both Heather and Dena, in your own terms, in your own narrative, and in your own identity. What does Arabness mean to you? What does an Arab woman mean to you right now in America? And what does it mean to your profession? And what are the layers of your identity and how do those intersect? Heather, we'll start with you.
Wow. What does an Arab woman mean to me? I don't know. My head just goes directly to food. My stepmother was a stay-at-home stepmother, and there was always food on the table, and anyone who ever joined came to the house always ate. So yeah, what Arabness means to me is, we are intersectional, right? Like, even if you are, the assumed Arab woman, you still have multifaceted dynamics about you, right? So I'm hearing some feedback.
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, great. No, I guess what an Arab woman means to me is someone who is resilient and strong and just kind of like principled in what she believes and stands for. That's what I take from being an Arab woman. Yeah, and also my background, my father is Palestinian, my mom is American, she's Black. And yeah, I believe, I definitely have a fighter in me because of the Palestinianness, but our Black history here in the United States is also full of fight. So I just remember to be tender with myself and be, strong, because we have ancestors, watching and generations to work for. So I always keep in mind future generations, because, it's not often, well, there's plenty of mixed people out there, but, like no one looks like me. No one has not no one. Okay, let me take it back again. A little nervous here.
You're fine.
We have, ancestors watching essentially. Like the load can be heavy, but we have to remember to be easy on ourselves, because this is the first time a lot of us have seen this level. I'm the first masters in my family. And, there's cousins. My cousins are looking at me. My little brothers and sisters are looking at me. So I do it for them for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather, so much. And to be honest, like, your journey is in the process. So your narrative is still in the process of developing, like all of us. And I honestly am so proud of you, to be honest. Like, I love that, because from our talks and now what you're saying, like, I cannot wait to, like, honestly push you forward to be more in the spotlight and sharing your story, because it is unique and you do bring a fresh take, on many, many narratives. So thank you for that. Dena, I want to hear from you.
What Arabness means to me, of course, like you said, there's so many layers to it. But Arabness, it's interesting because when I was growing up, I grew up on Staten Island, predominantly Italians, and I kind of silenced my identity for most of my junior high school into high school years, obviously because of the Islamophobia that happened post 9/11 and the shame that came with it. So fast forward today, when, being proud of my Arabness means resilience, means civilization, means my ancestors, right? It's just, there's so much power as an Arab American, but also as an Egyptian. My roots are heavy in the civilization. And sometimes when I get nervous and I'm like, can I be creative? It's like, my ancestors, look what they created, right? It's like, there's just so much power to that. And to think that I was once ashamed and wanted to kind of blend in with people who I thought were the norm, right? There's just so much power in your just being who you are. And I think it was a journey, and it's still a journey, right? And I think wherever you are in the world, I think it's important to just really kind of learn about all the different layers and ways that make Arabs who we are. Because I think for so long I don't want to say struggled, because I don't like to play victim, but in a sense, we have been pushing to kind of fight for that narrative of, we come in peace, we come in creativity, we come in innovation. There's just so many different layers that I feel as Arabs, as Arabness, is just so much power in it, in my opinion. So that's, to me, that's Arabness. It's a term for me that I grew to appreciate, to learn, and really heavily identify with finally.
Absolutely.
I'm going to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
About being afraid to identify or not really, there wasn't enough narratives happening when I was coming up. I feel like being Arab just got cool last year, with like house music and like, TV, finally Netflix having series that focuses on Arabs. I mean, I had Latin friends, and they just took me in as Peruvian or Puerto Rican, and I didn't correct them, but it's because, there is so much power in Arabness. You have to be willing to speak about it, be strong in your opinion of it. Not opinion of it, but, someone always has something to say, right? And so rather than having to broach those conversations, I just decided to silence my Arabness and kind of just like go with the flow. And I think like as immigrants, half of my family is immigrant. It's better if you're just quiet and you don't draw attention to yourself, and that's something that I learned culturally. But yeah, I totally agree with that, Dena.
I resonate with that so much. No, thank you for sharing that, Heather, and like Dena, like, because you talked about like how you had to silence your Arabness. And when I came to the US, I literally like silenced my Arabness. I mean, but the thing is, like, for example, my uncle, like, he's more white, and he's from my mom's side. All of his friends are white. He's assimilated to like whiteness. All of his friends are white. In my situation, I've assimilated to Latin and Black culture, like automatically, like, even though I told everyone like, yeah, I grew up in Lebanon, like, people say like, oh, this is Jad, he's Black, just bring him in, or like Jad, he's Latin, he's Puerto Rican, I guess. you know, so I just like, and I didn't even like have a say in it, you know, and I kind of like liked it, like, okay, thank you for welcoming me. But also like, I kind of need to tell you that I'm Lebanese first, you know, and, you know, my dad is Palestinian, and now I discovered I'm Haitian, and that opens a whole can of like understanding of like, you know, narrative. And right now at this moment, I feel like I hold those proudly with me, you know, like everywhere I go, like this is who I am. And, you know, I even like correct people, like, thank you for telling me that I look Latino. It's a beautiful compliment, but I want you to know what I am. So that is something also that I resonate with. Speaking of our beautiful intersectional identities, well, Heather, my question to you is, you've traveled the world, being Black, Palestinian, Arab, American in your social environment, your common connective cultural points that you amplify. How did you feel that your Arabness and your Blackness have helped you shape cross-cultural approaches within the Qader group? We're very curious to know, like, how did you bring that into your group and into your company, into your entity, with your colleagues? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think being mixed, period, creates this thought that, you know, you're existing, you're different, right? You're always different in some way from the people in the room, and you're always considering both sides, right? And so I feel like my intersectionality caused me to think about all sides all the time, and sometimes being over considerate. But I do feel like it has created like a thoughtfulness in my leadership style, in that I'm considering the people first, right? And I think that that's universal in business. Like, you know, business deals with people, and people all have feelings, they all have days and lives. So I think always considering like what they're going through, what their needs are, that's helped me. I'm not sure if that's Arabness more so than like a personality trait. But you know, I think like my ambiguous appearance may help people to feel more comfortable. Like, I'm clearly not white. You don't know if I'm Black or Arab or Hispanic. So I feel like, you know, my appearance alone has helped like me bring people in rooms that they probably wouldn't, you know, otherwise go in by themselves. So yeah, I see it as like a way to bring people together, using my appearance and also my knowledge of culture. I mean, I've been to Asia and South America, and I speak a little bit of everything. Yeah, and I think maybe the part of the Arabness is making people feel like, you know, this is your home. It doesn't matter, like, if I'm in the room, this is your home, you know. And I never want anyone to feel out of place, because I know how it feels to feel out of place. So I'm always considering, you know, the quiet voice in the room.
Yeah, that's definitely something I can resonate with as well. Well, Dena, I don't know if you have any thoughts on what Heather thought, but I want to direct the same question to you, but more in terms of like the work that you have done as well. Like, for you specifically, you and I talked about like how you've connected cultural points, intersections, being North African Egyptian and being involved in entertainment and media, how you found that like hip hop music has been influenced by Arab music at some point, and also like vice versa in a way. And that has helped you, you know, bridge those together. I mean, recently you've curated this playlist for Tidal, and you published. So that's also an achievement of your work. Congrats on that. But also, you know, you've partnered with Swiss Beats, and you've landed him the cover on the front page magazine, and you've had conversations with him. And you and I also talked about like, you know, leveraging artists from the Middle East into the Arab world and finding that connection. Can you amplify a little bit about that? Like how the integration of culture from two parts of the world, how do you do that in your work? Like, you know, some examples maybe, and like maybe your own personal narrative, and like, why do you feel this is important?
Yeah, as Heather was saying, you know, I think as Arabs, we're very hospitable, right? I think that's something that's embedded in our nature, right? Like that's just a trait that I think it really helps in business, because, you know, I personally can sense when people or clients work with me versus a bigger agency, Because yes, I've built an extensive network, but also, it's the energy. It's something that a value within the Arab community that you feel, right? If you go to somebody's house, you feel that hospitality, you feel that compassion, you feel they always want to feed you, they always want to pay, they always want to, and while there are some positives and negatives to that, and I'll talk about that in maybe a different, conversation in terms of like, as a woman, like culturally, like sometimes in the beginning when I started my company, I would be embarrassed to ask for money, or even I'm like, wait, I'm a company though, or ask for more. It was like, it's this shyness that also comes along with my identity of growing up in, it's not necessarily my household because my family always promoted education, but it was more of like what outsiders would say, right? But back to your point, when I started my company, this was 7 years back, I just had a lot of ideas. And that's when I knew. I used to work at Oprah Magazine, worked in PR, I worked in fashion houses, and I knew that I wanted to start my company again because there was a gap in what people are saying about us. And it really drove me to a point where it's like, this is ridiculous. Why are other people telling our stories? Right? Even back then, where are the stories right now? And then a few years down in the middle, it was like, why are they telling the story? Now we're getting to a point, I mean, I still see it. I don't want to mention names, but you have PR professionals going to the Middle East and saying that certain terms mean this. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. There's little details that really, really, it gets me frustrated as an Arab because we need to be at the forefront. And that's what really drove me to build relationships and show, as any entrepreneur, you always have to show what are you bringing to the table? What makes you unique, right? And I think being Egyptian and identifying as Egyptian American, Arab American, North African, I think for me, I was able to really forge relationships authentically because, a lot of the struggles were similar, right? With Swiss Beats, he's literally a great friend. I call him a mentor to me. We've done projects together. We're going to be doing hopefully a project in the Middle East. He's been an amazing person, and it's rare because in the entertainment space, that there's another layer, right? Like good luck as a woman getting into spaces without, men trying to take advantage of you.
That's
A
true.
whole other different conversation. So for me, it was a push, and I think respect, it's long term, right? For me, I always took my business seriously. In the beginning, I've done so much to show what ideas I had. And I think the relevance of, I think everybody knows that a lot of hip hop songs are sampled by Arab music. But for me, it's like nobody was actually putting it to the forefront and saying, hey, this is us. This is Arabs. This is Arab Heritage Month, right? When I partnered with Tidal, that was actually the first time they've actually officially celebrated it. I don't even think they really knew that it existed, right?
It's the first time a lot of brands celebrated Arab American Heritage Month. I mean, Sephora just just partnered with, I forgot her name. I actually DM'd her. Her name is Mira Salwa. I forgot her name, but I told her, thank you for like designing this Sephora pussy. Like, thank you. And like you said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your point, but other brands are doing it too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's exciting to see. So it's been years of people like me, yourself, and Heather. It's just, it's the work that's done behind the scenes that is not publicly announced, that it's that emailing that corporate executive for them to only say, oh, we'll get back to you, we'll circle back, right? It's that push. And for me, I've always been really, really annoyingly persistent, right?
I love that.
It's just to the point, like, for me, it's like, I'm very, I'm proud of everything I've done, but I'm also very like, there's still more to be done. But I know how I got here, because if you see in the previous years, my LinkedIn, my emails, it was literally constantly connecting. Even somebody like Swiss, I would, like it just, again, it goes back to how you present yourself and what you're bringing to the table. So.
True. Can I say something? And because we've answered, we've given tackled a lot of points and everything. The fact that we, the three of us, like, are actually doing this, because it's not like, yes, I told Kenny I wanted to do this, but this is the three of us coming together and bring this forward. It's courageous. And to be very honest, I'll be very, very honest, and I'm gonna say this. Like, Heather, you mentioned something about, like, we just got popular last year. We're not popular yet, to be very honest with you. We're not popular, to be honest with you, because we still, like, I feel like people, even generic market, still feel like, like, why do I, like, even for the panel, like, I feel like sometimes some people are like, I'm not sure what this is. Like, I mean, intersectional, like, even intersectionality is a term that is, like, fairly new to a lot of, even though it existed for many years. But, like, intersectional Arab and entrepreneurship, is very, it's like, we literally went from talking about, like, tabbouleh and shish kebab and whatever and folklore dancing last year to the intersectional Arab entrepreneur, like, getting to it. But you know something, if we don't do it, how, like if we don't, you said, Dena, you said something important, like, you're being annoyingly aggressive. Like, I'm annoyingly aggressive. And Heather, you mentioned that, like, you utilize your privilege and your appearance and also your personality and your cultures to bring people to the forefront. I mean, look at your team. They speak different languages, they're from different parts of the world, and you work with people from multiple backgrounds. You understand the importance of Blackness, Latinness, globalism in your line of work. And if you say, like, you know what, if my appearance or, like, my persona and my cultures allow me to bring people to the forefront, I'm going to do it. And Dena, you go straight. I mean, you're a straight shooter, you go for it. And we need to be like that, because if we're not going to bring those qualities that are really part of Arabness, how are we going to move forward? So honestly, this panel is literally just, I feel like, for me, is a prototype to a larger discussion that hopefully, next year or, like, in the coming months, is going to be forward, so everything starts in small steps, but we're doing it, even if it's, small audience, not everyone's exposed, but we're doing it. So I want to definitely show gratitude. Yes, go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail. It's like, we can't depend on other people to create the kinds of experiences that we provide, right? Like, we have to provide them. And, when someone sees a flyer online, like, that is Arabness to the forefront. When I have an event, or, Dena gets a publication, or you're on TV, Jad, like, that's bringing. So, I mean, we are the pioneers of the culture at this moment for this generation. So, I mean, our job, our responsibility is to continue pushing forward and using our resources to do that. So I dig it. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Well, I want to amplify more your independence. Can you please, like, walk us through, we talked a little bit about assimilation, and Heather, since you brought it up, I actually want to ask you, how did you go into your independence and your entrepreneurship? How do you feel like you got into that, from assimilation to breaking free? And you told me an experience that you had with La Colombe. So I'm kind of, like, curious. Tell us of the journey briefly of, like, breaking out of that, like, corporate America barrier and then starting your own thing, please.
Yeah, I think, like, it's not special to me as a woman, but I think in corporate environments, we tend to be harassed a little bit, right? And then also asked to do way more than what our role is, and not really given the autonomy in the roles that we are provided. And so I, in all my roles, not just La Colombe, I didn't find the kinds of leaders that I thought that, I didn't find the kinds of leaders that would push me forward to reach my potential. And I knew that I needed mentorship and a good leader to help usher me into, like, the next level. I realized I wasn't going to get that, the kind of experience that I wanted. So I, thought to myself, I could stress all by myself for myself. So I started my own business and, never looked back. I mean, there's something so rewarding about, like, succeeding as an entrepreneur that, I couldn't have done or felt in previous positions. My independence was because of my principles, right? Like, I didn't want to be, I just didn't want to go into work feeling like, I was being like marginalized or like distressed or anything. Like I just chose not to go in anymore and to create a structure where I can work with who I want to work with, do what I want to do. I just wanted to create my own structure. So yeah, my independence was found. Jad, if I'm missing something that you specifically are
No,
referring to, let
you're
me know.
explaining it all. You are.
But yeah, I did it so I could stand in my own power, essentially, and I could grow at my own rate. And really, like, there's nothing that pushes you to grow further and faster than the hardship of being an entrepreneur. But like, I'm 3 years in, and I feel like I have a lot to show for it, and I can't wait for the next 3 years, next 20 years.
Thank you for sharing that. That's absolutely inspiring. Dena, backing off of that idea, like, how about you?
Can you the question?
I'll repeat it again. Moving from assimilating to corporate America into your entrepreneurship and your independence.
Okay. So yeah, I think I kind of briefly mentioned it earlier, but I'll get more detailed. When I started my company there, first of all, it was because of rejection. I didn't go to, an Ivy League school. I was, I went to College of Staten Island, studied business management marketing. Then I went to get my master's at Pace University, studied digital publishing, but it was a lot of rejection. And then there was also a lot of gaps in the industry. So that combined, it was just very frustrating. And when I started to build connections, relationships, people started reaching out to me. And I'm like, well, how can I use that to my, how can that be a business? Then I added the creativity aspect to it. Then I'm like, okay, I think I have something here, right? I have the relationships, I have the ideas. And like Heather said, there was just a lot of, there was a lot of gaps in the industry where the projects that I was working on in the past never authentically represented Arab Americans and people of color, or the projects that me growing up as a 14-year-old saw in media and advertising that I would have felt like this is inspiring, this is empowering, not just for the Arab community, but to be honest, I grew up with a lot of self-esteem that had nothing to do with Arab. Well, maybe a little, but just I never used to, like, yeah, I have, wavy hair now, but I do curly hair sometimes. And in growing up on Staten Island, that was weird to them, right? Like I didn't use straightening irons. There were just so many differences that for me, I was very insecure. And I always wondered, what if I started a company where I was at the forefront of really shaping media, PR, and advertisement, how would that look like, right? Whether it's through partnerships, whether it's through marketing. And so I really made that my passion. And through that, I was able to kind of navigate, fail, then reinvent myself, then try again, then build relationships, then think about how to utilize them, then have ideas. It's a constant journey. It's never a like, wow, you started a business, let's go, right? So it's just it's a humbling experience, but like Heather said, it's like, I wanted to build my own structure, but also, when people don't invite you to the table, like they always say, it's like, I want to eat from my ingredients, because the ingredients that they were offering at the table weren't necessarily inclusive to what a lot of people resonated with, or, what we prefer. So to answer your question, I hope I did.
No, definitely. I mean, we did talk about, like, it's assimilation, but then having your own narrative and breaking free and going into it. And honestly, you've been doing such amazing work, Dena, like, for real. Like, I literally see you with admiration. And with that being said, like, I want you to highlight, because that was the next part of our talk, like, what do you feel was your greatest achievement, and what current project are you working on or thinking of working on right now to amplify your business and your narrative, but also your Arabness? So I'm very curious to hear, what was one of your proudest moments, and what do you hope to work on right now?
Me, right? You want me
yes,
to?
yes, you.
Honestly, my proudest moments, I mean, it's hard to narrow it to one, but I will say the most, you know, the moment that it was very surreal to me was when I was co-moderating at the United Nations, being called and recognized by Michael Douglas, saying my name, because to me, like we mentioned before, I was so ashamed of being Arab, but also I was ashamed of my name. Maybe not Dena, but my full name is, you know, obviously Arabs. Another fun fact, you know, Arab children take their father's middle, our middle name is our father's name. So my middle name was Hosni.
Yeah.
And Michael Douglas didn't say Hosni, but he said Dena Mekawi. And that moment for me was not because I was with, you know, A-listers or I mean, it was really cool, don't get me wrong, but it was because an A-lister said my name when 10 years back, my name, I was trying to silence it and I was so ashamed. Like, I think that moment for me was like, I'll never get over it. And I'm not over it just because of what it meant for me and also Arabs. Like, I had Twitter girls and like in the Middle East, like, I didn't know this was possible because of you. Like, how did you do this? They started UN model clubs after in high school. I'm like, for me, what did I do? They were like, I saw your story. I didn't know this was possible. I looked into it. So it's like just being you can literally be like, okay, this is possible, right? So I think that was one of my most memorable experiences just because of what it meant for me and other Arabs.
Oh, I love that. That is amazing. And you were inspired other, you know, young people to look at that. Like we are representation right now with our platforms. Heather, I would love to hear from you. Did you inspire anyone in your life? Because you have many publications about you and how you broke free and like decided to be, you know, a people's person in your job and everything. So I really want to hear from you. Like, what was like a happy moment in your career that you felt was like a metric of success?
Oh man, speaking at the UN, that's pretty hard to top. But yeah, this year I actually just became a professor at Temple, and that was exciting.
Congrats.
Because you know, I would say yes to all of, I'm a graduate of business school, and I would say yes to all of the panels, and I would literally just show up and be myself as I am a businesswoman. And the thing is, my flavor, the flavor of business that we were taught in school isn't the flavor of business I'm serving. So I'm happy that I can like be paid and awarded for just being myself. So I think my greatest achievement is finally finding my voice and being myself and learning how to like just, you know, give that example to everyone else, because, you know, if you're not yourself, how's anyone going to find you? That's my
Thank you. No, that is a major success. Like, you know, us, I mean, I'm an educator too, you know, I teach college as well. So for us to take space in academia is important because we get to like hold the torch and like switch things around, you know, from traditional academia. So absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I do want to open it up to the audience before we go into, you know, our final points. So I would like to ask anyone in the room, if you have any questions, comments in the chat, or you can raise your hand. If you want to ask me, Heather, or Dena any questions, I think we covered a lot, but please, the floor is yours, chat or raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself and say what you want to say.
I do have a question. Hey.
Yes, Jane, go ahead. Hi.
Hey, hi, Jed. Hi, Heather. Hi, Dena.
Hi.
Yeah, I think I feel really inspired from what you guys were talking about, because I don't think I've ever like give a deeper thought about Arabness, and this is my first time to seeing like, oh, this is a group of people that I need to, you know, pay more attention about. Like, it's another group of like people of color. And then yeah, my question is like, so I just read a phrase today. It's about inclusion delusion, which means that many people of color feel like they are highly they are like highly, seen in the workplace, but actually at the same time, they are not being respected, or they are having like power. So like it's a fake phenomenon.
Mhm.
Have you guys ever feel about that situation? Because I feel like I feel that. If so, what would you guys fight against towards it?
So yeah, going back to that La Coloma experience, I learned what inclusion was in that position. I knew what diversity, DEI, I knew what diversity was, being in the room, but in terms of inclusion, it's including being included in important conversations to make the decisions that you need to be effective in your role. Yeah, so that's definitely a thing. And then the other part of that where, the inclusion delusion, is that what you said? I think a lot of times as people of color, we walk into rooms thinking that we are the only, I mean, we usually are the only, but I think that the weight or the baggage that we're carrying is heavier than we need to give it credit for. I get that there is like, social, racial history in this country. But I think sometimes we carry baggage in that's unnecessary to carry in. So maybe like lightening your load before you walk in the room and not making not pre-assuming something before it's actually been, I mean, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the illusion delusion, definitely get that one, or inclusion delusion. And then the other one is like this, like invisible weight that we're carrying into rooms, corporate environments specifically, that isn't really ours to carry. And maybe no one is thinking about it, but if they are thinking about it, that's on them. And that has nothing to do with you. Hopefully that answered something. Yeah.
No. Dena, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for me, I personally at some point, like many have, in big publications in the beginning of my career, I was excluded from a lot of the conversations. And at the time, 8 years back, nobody really knew what Eid was, Ramadan was. And so when I would ask for time off, I was reported because I didn't tell them ahead of time. And, I took a step back. And even now when I do what I do, so we give workshops on diversity and inclusion, when you say we want to include people, right, at the table and have them feel comfortable, well, we need to take a step back and understand, what does that mean? It's not enough to just have them sit at the table and look pretty or look themselves. You have to understand who they are, where they come from, what are their cultural norms, what do they practice, what's their values, right? So it's not just we want to see it at the table. It's we want to see it at the table, but we want to understand why you think the way you think and where you come from and what your beliefs are, so that we could advance, the workforce and have a comfortable, inclusive environment so that we could then thrive in corporate America or in our entrepreneurial journey. So I think inclusiveness is just so much more than like posting Happy Ramadan. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Because I see this a lot in corporations, Happy Ramadan. And when I have conversations with companies internally, and I won't mention some of them, it's like they just misappropriate Muslims and Arabs in a way where it's just like, you could tell they don't know a lot and they're ignorant. And that's okay. But as long as you recognize that and you're open to hiring people like me and Heather to really be like, okay, what are you guys really about? How do we go about talking to our employees? So there's so many layers, but it's such a great question because it's more deep than people think.
Absolutely. Jane, if you want me to give you my answer, like I fight back right away. I've come to a point where I don't care. I literally told my boss in Trent when I worked at a company, I'm like, you are a discriminating woman. I told her that to her face, like, you are a discriminating woman because you came and you told me that I need to work while my country was being exploded. That was back August 4, 2020, when Lebanon had a big explosion and I was devastated. And she was like reaching out to me like, you need to do work, after I told her I need to take off. So I was like, yeah, no. And I quit. Now, listen, not everybody can just go ahead and quit, especially I'm not a US citizen and I'm on my work visa and I don't qualify for unemployment and everything. And I don't get that. I don't have that privilege. And yet I said, like, you know what, I quit because I'm not gonna let you walk all over me. I don't need you. I don't need to be included with you. I don't want your inclusion. No, thank you. I don't want to feel included in with someone who disrespects me. But that's me, Jane. You know, maybe, you know, I know you're gonna be in growth, you're starting and everything. You know, if you do it from now, I'll be your #1 fan. But I'm saying, yes. Jackie, you say you had a question.
Yep, if I can find my buttons. So my question is for all three of you guys. Mostly it's centered around how, like, growing up in your different cultural experiences, you had to assimilate for like social ease, if you will, right? But when you were within your own community groups, did you feel like there was like a monolithic experience expectation that you had to meet, or did you feel like, was it a welcoming environment for you? Like, did you feel okay, or did it always feel like a place of just mismatching, if you will?
I felt more comfortable with my Black side. And like the Black culture was American, right? And so, you know, the Arab side was foreign and immigrant. And you know, my Arab side is Muslim and my Black side is Christian. And we had grown up Christian before my parents were divorced, and then remarried. My father remarried a Muslim woman, and my mom married my stepdad, who's a Christian man. So yeah, I did, you know, in Arab settings, I felt like I had to be this prim, proper, you know, good Arab girl that represented her family well. But I was like, you know, I loved Alicia Keys. Hey, Dena, tell her I say, hey. I wore cornrows, I wore Parasucos and like Air Force Ones. Like, I mean, I grew up Black. So yeah. And like, you know, no one tells you you're not Black better than your Black family does. But, you know, I never had, you know, an issue. I always identified more with my Black side, just because it was my culture in America. Was that the question? Sorry. Okay, good.
You know, funny story. And I'm a big believer of the law of attraction. When I was 8 years old, and I actually have this picture, one of my, like, I admired her for so many reasons, was Alicia Keys, because she had the curly hair, she was thick, and, you know, obviously Africans, Egyptians were built that way. And when I would be around my white peers, there was just a lot of differences, right? And Alicia Keys to me was just so real. I don't know, I personally believe in the power of focusing on something and then it just aligns and you attract it. So when people say, oh my God, you met her, it's so cool, I'm like, I definitely attracted her in my life. And I promise you that. So I actually got my hair braided in Florida because I was like, I wanted to be her, but like I just resonated with her. She was just so real. And yeah, like I had, like Heather said, I identified with the Black culture just because it was like, I just felt like it was just me. Like I felt, you know, it was just it was just genuine. And so it was just something I firmly believe, even in my everyday life and business. It's just, you know, the power of your mind. When you focus on something, you probably will attract it in your life.
We have a last question from Devon, and then we can close it out.
Yeah, thank you so much for the chat, guys. Really appreciate this, and you know, I'm learning a lot from just hearing the three of you speak. Now, my question is two-pronged. One that's sort of like past-facing, and the other one future-facing. And it really comes from something interesting that both you, Heather, and Jad mentioned. Heather, you were like, you know, Arabness didn't become cool to about like a year ago. And then Jad, you followed up to that and you were like, we haven't even became cool yet. we still have much more to do. And there's a lot of folks out here who didn't even know that Arab American History Month was a thing. And for those who probably are sort of leaning into raising the Arab narrative, I think that Dena, you mentioned something which is almost like Arab washing, where they'll just like almost put like a fake post to sort of like show themselves as an ally, but they're not well informed about the culture. So when it comes to my question, for the past facing one, do you guys have a sense of what may have led to Arabness? And it's probably like for you, Heather, as well as Jad, like, do you guys like have an idea of what has led to Arabness becoming cool, or not even just like diving a bit deeper into that? And then for the future facing question, maybe Dena, you could answer this a bit more. How do you feel that brands and maybe even people that work behind those brands could become sponsors, not just showing fake allyship, but people who are actually doing the work to make sure that they're educating themselves and that they are elevating Arab narratives beyond the floor, the baseline, essentially?
Great question. I don't know who wants to.
I've
Jad?
been going first, so I'm gonna let you take this one.
Okay, so
Go ahead, Dena. Yeah.
what made Arabness relevant, and like you said, in my opinion, I think the rise of Dubai, in a sense, right? People now see they align Arab with money and richness and luxury. There's celebrities fleeing there, Saudi Arabia. There's just this whole, now actually it's cool to wear, it's called abaya. Do you know how many times my family would be embarrassed to wear that? Now it's like a status of like rich money, oil money, right? There's just a lot of symbols in media and entertainment that now it's like, it's cool. Like you wear that, it's like, wow, that's a status thing. And again, I don't know what's good or bad, because obviously there's just so many different levels of, socioeconomic factors that come into play of where Arabs lie. But again, if it raises our narrative, okay. And if it's not harmful, but I think for the future, that's a great question. Me personally and our company have been pushing not only Arab Heritage Month, Ramadan campaigns for the past few years. We're now been talking to like people at Rock Nation to do something with a Muslim artist with the brand, right? I don't want to mention details, but because it's still in process for the next year, right? Like I mentioned, we're hopefully doing something in Egypt, and it has to do with Swiss. So, and it's all about art and culture and really showcasing, artists, right? So for me personally, it's been a mission to not only elevate Arabs, but also kind of allow others to feel welcomed, companies to feel welcomed, right? If a company wants to sponsor, let us walk you through what that looks like, right? Whether that's through sponsorship, alignment, strategy. So there's just a lot of opportunities. I think companies just have to be receptive to really working like with people like us. And again, it's a push when people say, oh my God, you've done a lot. I don't know if it's just this, like, for me, it's a passion thing, but I'm like, all right, but there's still more, but it's a lot of push, more than people probably would think. So hope I answered your question.
Yeah. And I think also, like, for me, I'm going to be very simple. Netflix, Dubai Bling. I know you mentioned Dubai, but like seeing the lifestyle, like seeing them like actually on TV. And then also Netflix released a whole bunch of Arab programming. And then also, like, last but not least, 2020, when we had, like a racial awakening in this country, it gave us the language to humanize, right? And so we no longer see like these conflicts as just religious or just the way that it's been. It's state sanctioned violence, right? And so we see that if you have if you are a state actor and you have a military outfit on, equipped with machine guns or whatever weaponry, like now it's like we have the toolbox of vocabulary to discuss and to describe what's actually happening to our fellow humans, right? Rather than it's just been this way the whole time. So now Arabs who have been in war-torn countries, who are always like, you know, in the middle of a resource grab, now we're humanizing them, I think. And me as a Palestinian, like I've applied for a fellowship and told them specifically that I'm not going to speak on being Palestinian because I am also a businesswoman and I didn't want my opportunities being impacted. But now that I have the vocabulary from Black Lives Matter, now I can move forward confidently in describing what is supposed to be complex, which is not so complex when there's, you know, someone in a uniform killing someone else, right? So yeah, I think that just like a bucket of knowledge has been opened up by, you know, media and movements in this country.
I will close it out, but also like giving the common points here. But thank you so much, Heather and Dena, for sharing that. From my end, and to answer Devon's question, I'm not going to talk about it being cool because I don't like that. I don't believe in like, you know, we need to be cool or whatever. I really don't give two shits about that. Honestly, I don't care about us being commercial because that's not how I see my Arabness, to be honest with you. It's not pop. I mean, pop culture is there. Yes, of course. And I love it. We're amplifying it, whatever. But for me, what needs to be done, to be honest, is leveraging Arabness into the workforce, which means investing money in panelists such as me, Dena, and Heather, you know, not just as panelists, but in our business to move business forward, because not only are we bringing, you know, education about Arabness, we literally just talk about cross-culturalism that we do, you know, like Dena partnering with Swiss Beads, working at the UN, Heather having a diverse team, and, you know, amplifying businesses from this global perspectives. And, you know, I mean, for me, you already know how I do my work. I focus a lot on intersectionality, something that is lacking within the US workforce, I'll say, something that people say as a title, like they put multicultural, cross-cultural as a title, but they don't have lived experience in it. So we need to be paid for that. And we bring that forward. So because this is the link, like it's not talking about Arabness, it's just how Arabness brings, you know, cross-culturalism into the workplace, you know, whether it's entertainment, whether it's in media or anything, we need to leverage that. We need to leverage that. We need to be on the forefront. We need good budget so we can work with companies, with the Pepsis and the Adidas, honestly, or the Young and Rubicam or EY, to be there at the forefront and actually talking about globalization and diaspora from that perspective, because this is a key for us to bring our narrative forward. From what I've learned, to be honest, just talking about Arabness or Arab culture is looked at as a commodity. And when I hear about like an organization like getting paid money to talk about our food, while I get paid, for example, I get paid or someone gets paid like less to talk about this, what we're talking about, yeah, that bothers me a lot personally. So no, I don't want us to be cool. I want us to move culture forward. I want us to move business forward while being cool, you know? So that's what I feel like needs to be done, you know, bringing business forward, enhancing humanity, bringing cross-cultural forward, globalization, all of that. And our Arabness allows us to do that. So that's what that's what needs to happen. We're doing it already. We just want, you know, the investment, the leverage, and the amplification. That's it. You want to talk about allyship? That's allyship. I don't care about your Happy Ramadan post. You can put that aside. It doesn't do anything. You know, anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. Honestly. So, and I'm speaking a little bit out of anger. I am. And to be honest, it's valid. And I'm pretty sure Dena and Heather resonate with that because we're tired. Like I get tired sometimes. Sometimes I get tired in my own communities talking about it and all I get is a nod. Yeah, I feel you, man. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's a shame that we, the three of us, amplify other narratives and we love it. We love amplifying all other communities because we're really passionate about it. We don't do it because we need to. We do it because we learn to. You know, Dena talked about like, we have a natural nick of hospitality and bringing people into our homes. It's within our blood. Regardless of your race, of your background or anything, we bring culture into our tables because we're born this way. We're taught this way from our parents. So it's a natural thing to us. And we see other people doing performative allyship. We start to think like this is, and they get the credit because their performance is on the spot. So yeah, that's how it needs to be done. So hopefully this panel, I don't know, Dena, Heather, any last thoughts on that? But I just had to say that out loud and bring it in. I just had to just throw it out there.
No, I definitely agree, and I support everything you said. And again, we could probably go on with our experiences, but like you said, hopefully this panel moves the needle, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in and share. My daughter is a senior at a high school here in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and the New York City Board of Education was closed for Eid.
Yep.
My daughter attended an iftar the night before Passover Seder, and for me, that's like that is everything. So I so appreciate your insights and just hearing your stories and just moving the needle a little bit. I mean, it's a public holiday, Lunar New Year and Eid is now a public holiday. Schools are closed, and I think that also is being taught that this is a beautiful celebration and everybody needs to learn more about it. And for me, it's always about awareness. If I'm not aware, then I don't know how to support and celebrate. So I'm so grateful. This was just fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Appreciate you. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Kenny, thank you so much for the opportunity. So I want everyone to leave out of here, please reach out to Dena, me, or Heather if you want to carry on the conversations, if you want to learn more about us, what we do. We appreciate you all so much. I hope you learned a little bit about Arabness, intersectionality, and entrepreneurship, and how we're moving the needle forward within our narratives. If there's any questions, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. I've posted our links to our websites. You can add us on LinkedIn. And Kenny, I'm gonna leave it to you to close it out for us.
I just want to thank everybody for making the time and being in the Rose Garden with us tonight. Heather, Dena, you already know. Thank you so much. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye.